What's up, LukaNation? Cage was talking, and he was like, "This is kind of like a bucket list item for Andrew," and it really is because, we've talked a little bit about Barstool. They're doing that break with Golden, but I think there's 2, 3, maybe 5 accounts, 5 businesses, 5 media companies on the internet that really control culture. And Overtime to me is one of those brands. They have an in with high school sports, high school kids. They love them. Like the Gen Z, I guess is what they called. And I'm really excited today because we have my man Sam here, and Sam Gordon, who's at Overtime. He does amazing things there. He's editor in chief. And Cage met him at Bleecker Trading at a Bleecker Trading event on Tuesday. So I knew we had to have him on. I want to hear his story, how he found himself in the hobby. But before all that, I want to talk to you. You played basketball at Johns Hopkins, right? Talk to us about your college days.
Yeah, so I actually had a really weird basketball career because I'm Cage. I don't know if you remember from seeing me, but I got some height now. I'm about 6'6", 6'7".
He's a tall dude.
Yeah, I had a late growth spurt though, so I didn't even know I could play college basketball till I was a senior in high school, and I went to one basketball camp. I got a few offers, but I really liked Johns Hopkins from an academic standpoint. So I was like, all right, I'll just go there and I'll try to walk on. So I ended up getting in, and I had the weirdest career. I walked on as a junior, and I did not play my first 2 years at all. I walked on as a junior. I played, I think, 30 minutes my whole junior year, and then I started as a senior. And then my coach was like, "Oh, you should come back for a year since you just kind of started, coming into your own a bit." So I was like, "All right, screw it." I talked to my parents. I came back for a 5th year. I got my master's degree, and I played a 5th year of D3 college basketball. But it was fun. I ended up having I was an all-conference player my last year. Had a great time, and for me, being part of a team is my favorite thing. So and I always think if you could stay in college for another year instead of go work, that was the move. So it was definitely a fun experience.
See, everybody I know who stayed an extra year in college did not get a master's. They just drank a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because whenever I say I stayed a 5th year, that everyone assumes it was for academic issues. I was like, no, not really. I kind of wanted to just hoop for another year, but it was fun.
Listen, so I'm going to come back to basketball and let Andrew ask this question because really he has been excited about Overtime for basically as long as I've known him. But I didn't know this, that you are in a crew where there can't be too many people with masters, right? People look at you and wow, are you 57 years old? You got a master's degree? I mean, in where you are, that's got to be an interesting point of conversation.
Yeah, but here's what I'll tell you. My master's degree was in finance, about pricing options and things like that. I don't think I've used a single thing I learned in my master's degree since the day that I finished it. So yeah, I mean, I might have a master's, but if you ask me anything about the Black-Scholes options pricing model or something today, I have no idea what I'm talking about. So yeah, I mean, there's probably maybe not so many people with a master's degree at my age, but here's what I'll say. The one thing I've learned from working at a startup is I don't think it matters what school you went to or what degrees you have. There's people that get it done, and then there's people that don't get it done, and that's the way I look at things. So, I think when you're going to college, you're all oh, what's the ranking? Or it doesn't really matter. People in the real world get it done or they don't.
You guys who are listening, you're going to want to stay tuned because we're going to come back to Sam's college days, and he has a story for you guys. But first, you just said Overtime is a startup. You guys are a pretty huge company now. You guys have millions of followers. You're launching a high school basketball league next year. For the people out there Cage's age and below, what is Overtime? How do you describe Overtime?
Yeah, so I describe Overtime as the sports media for the next generation of fans, and I could give you a little background on it. So I actually know the co-founder who's the co-founder Zach, who's one of probably my biggest role model. We've actually known each other since we were in Hebrew school together on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. So he was a couple of years older than me in Hebrew school. My parents ended up pulling me out of that one because I acted poorly and they thought it couldn't be me. It was the Hebrew school's fault. So they pulled me out of that Hebrew school.
You cut the challah when you could only rip the challah. Everybody knows that.
It was a lot. There was more issues than challah. I'll say that.
Andrew,
there was some behavioral. There was some real behavioral issues in Hebrew school.
It's on the Upper West Side. They call it challah there. They don't say challah. You have to have the actual sound there.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyways, we ended up reconnecting years later at the JCC, the Jewish Community Center, playing basketball. And Zach had started like a sports website for people in college that wanted to write about sports. And I was like, oh yeah, I'd love to like join it. It was small at the time. It was called the Sports Quotient. So I applied for a job. I ended up like running the basketball part of that. And then Zach ended up co-founding Overtime. And when I graduated, he said, you want to come you want to come work for us? And like, I'll be honest, like, you know, like I mentioned before, I had a master's degree in finance, and that's kind of what I studied. So I had like a job on Wall Street doing like trading analytics. And he's like, and at first I felt kind of weird giving that up because I had deferred it and all that stuff. But he's like, look, you know, these big companies, like they don't really care about you at the end of the day. Like, you know, a few people there that maybe are that you're attached to, but like this is a big company, and as soon as you stop adding to the bottom line, like, you know, you'll get cut loose. Whereas Overtime at that point was a really small company. I think I was the 10th or 12th full-time employee. And he's like, you could actually make a real impact to the bottom line and affect how the business grows. So I was like, all right, you know what? Overtime has a few more months of money left. Let's give it a shot. Worst case, the company goes under and we had fun for a few months. But yeah, fast forward 4 years later, and we're doing pretty well. So yeah, I mean, would it help if I kind of like talk about what the company is, or
yeah?
what
But
do you think
before you do that, Sam, I have to do this because I'm an old man, right? I'm gonna be 45 years old this year, and there are a lot of people listening to this podcast. A lot of people who are going to watch this on YouTube and listen to this who are at the stage that you were right there. Right, they're thinking about an alternate way of doing life. Right, they're thinking about like it's amazing. You know, you've said some really great stuff here in the first 10 minutes, and it's, you know, doers get it done. Doesn't matter what your degree says. Doesn't matter where that degree is from. I'm gonna make a T-shirt out of that. And also, you know, you took a chance, but really, you took a chance on yourself. Right, because here you are, graduated college, you got a master's degree, you got Wall Street staring you in the face, and I will tell you, you know, if that happened with me, everybody around me would have probably called me insane if I would have done anything but follow the path that you're supposed to take. And I'm talking about, you know, 20, 25 years ago when I'm getting out of college, right? What did your family say? And what could you say to people who are listening to this before we get into the whole Overtime stuff? Because it's amazing what you guys are doing there. What can you say to the people who are out there listening now who are thinking about going to college or not going to college, or they're in college and they're thinking about taking a chance on themselves or with a company that they may enjoy? And, you know, my co-host is smiling here because, you know, we've been doing this almost a year. It's amazing. My personal growth is what he's thinking.
Yeah.
Right? But in all honesty,
I'm thinking they sent him back to the Hebrew school on the Upper West Side again. They say, you've been a bad boy. You go back to Hebrew school.
That's it. Yeah. No, but I mean, so seriously, like it's an important thing because if nothing else, the podcast, the hobby community, you know, the people we talk to, the guests we have on, like yourself, have opened my eyes that there's more than one way to do life. And it's amazing to hear you at that age to say, you know what, I'm going to take this chance. You know, I'm looking at the company's runway. I see how much money they have. I see, you know, they have some life, and I'm going to take a chance because if this works, it's a better way of living than, you know, being on Wall Street. So can you talk to the people about that for a minute? You know, tell them why you took that chance, how your parents reacted, like, you know, how that went down, because I think that would be really valuable.
Yeah, for sure. So like, I think, well, first of all, you know, going into college, like, you have no idea what's going to shape your career or anything like that. But like, what I've learned is, I can't remember what movie's from, but like someone said like it's all about who you know, but like that it actually is about all about like who you know. Like for me, like I mentioned, Zach, who I've known since I was little, like, you know, he's helped guide me and help me get all these positions. But like I think the same thing is true of college. I think a lot of times you go to college and you might not learn, like, you'll learn some tangible things, right? Like if you're a computer science major, you need to go to college to learn how to code and things like that. And if you're a pre-med, like, you need to go. But for a lot of other jobs, like, you're going to go and you learn some skills. But I think the most valuable thing is like the people you meet there, right? Because you don't know if you're going to go to college and your you know, your freshman year roommate's going to be the co-founder of the company with you, or things like that. So I really do think it's all about like making connections and meeting people, and like even us like meeting on this podcast, like we never know how we're gonna what we're gonna do in the future, but it's just like good that we talked, and now we're like learning about each other and stuff like that. So like in terms of college versus non-college, like I think it's a great experience to go out of your hometown and out of your house, and like you have to just figure out how to live. So I think that's really valuable, and go meet people. And I think it's kind of just what you make of it. But like if you're in high school and you're starting a business, and you have a business, and you're gonna like sacrifice, if you're already like making money and doing something you're passionate about, you're gonna like sacrifice that to go get a degree. Like maybe that's worth like reevaluating. Because you can always go to college, but like if you're building a business and you have momentum or something like that, like that's hard to regain. So I think it really depends on that. But in terms of like taking a risk, so this is my view on like startups versus like established companies. Like if you go to an established company, you're going to get trained up, and you're going to start probably doing like some type of menial tasks, and like work your way up to doing meaningful work. But like even now, every person we add, like we actually need, like, and when I started, it was like we need you to come in and just figure it out. And like I'd never done anything in YouTube or like Snapchat or anything before, but I think that was actually our advantage, that like we had no idea what we were doing at the beginning, and we just figured it out, and we had a different perspective than everyone else who had worked in media for 30 years. So for me, I was like, okay, I want to come in, I want to have a decent amount of autonomy, and I want just like be able to go and figure it out, and like affect the course of the business, versus where at the other job I would have been like kind of just like clocking in and out. And by the way, the other job, like if you have a good job, like it could lead to great exit opportunities. It could give you the skills you need to do something else. But like for me, I just wanted to kind of be let loose and just like figure it out on the fly. And I think that was very valuable experience. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
How about the fam? Were they like, no, you went to Johns Hopkins, you got your MBA, the hell with that. You're not going to the startup that's going to be out of business in 3 months? Or were they like, nah, we know this kid. He was able to stay in the Hebrew school in the Upper West Side, unlike you. Go ahead and follow him to the end of the earth. No?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the funny thing. Well, maybe not so funny. The company that I was supposed to go work at, I was supposed to go work at after my senior year, but I told them I was going to go play basketball again.
Wow. Yeah.
And then they gave me another offer, and then I turned that down. But it gets even worse because Zach, our co-founder, he actually worked there too and quit to start Overtime. So my parents were a little bit like, they didn't love that I like turned down the place twice, even though after they had given me another thing. But they understood it. And like, look, I'll be honest. For me, there was a lot less downside risk because like I was based in New York City and I grew up here on the Upper West Side. So like the worst case for me is that whatever something happens to the company, like I'm still like living at home. I'm not paying rent or anything. Like a lot of people might not, if you're going to a different city working for a company, like you need to have a bit more like job security. But I was lucky just to have grown up here. So I knew like worst case, I would always have a place to live without money coming in or things like that. So I definitely had the right like situation to take some type of risk. But like they understood it. They knew Zach, and they understood like if you're going to take a risk when you're 23 coming out of college, like that's the time to do it. And by the way, I think I'm 27 now. Like I still feel like there's like risks to be taken.
I also think, and this isn't talked about enough in my opinion, when it comes to established companies, there's so many different versions. And Sam, I worked on Wall Street too. I left BlackRock. Everyone thought I was crazy, but people forget like you could go back. People forget that option of like, wait, there's a lot of these financial companies. If this doesn't work out, I just go back. And you say, hey, like I had to try something. I had to do something for myself. I had to figure it out, and it didn't work out. And I've learned these things. You could always go back. You can't go back to the trying. Once you don't take that chance, you live with regret. Let me ask you, sports cards. Were you like a collector when you were young? Did you just get into this recently? Talk to me about that.
Okay, so I had a weird sports card upbringing. So I've been going to card shows with my dad since I can remember. But like I think most people when you're little, like you want to open packs and things like that, right? You want to rip packs and pull the new cards. But my dad raised me on like going and buying like vintage stuff, like T206s and E90-1 like caramel caramel cards and everything. So that's what I grew up basically doing. Going to the card shows with my dad and trying to get Ty Cobb T206s and Honus Wagner cards and stuff like that. So I would do a little of the modern stuff, but like most of my history is all in the vintage stuff. And so I did it all through high school, and then I think a lot of people, once you get to college, like you're just doing a lot of other stuff. So I lost it a bit. But then during the pandemic, and again, I think this is probably for a lot of other people, like I was going through some hard times. Like I had a lot of anxiety and things like that, and I started seeing people breaking on Instagram and producing sports card content, and like that was I just started kind of diving in again because it was very comforting for me to like be watching people break cards and do things that I did when I was little, and like in high stress times, it was honestly the perfect way for me to like relax a little bit. So I just started digging back into it, getting back into it. And by the way, like I've still done stuff with my dad throughout the years. Like the collection has still grown a bit, but like I really just started diving in the last like year and a half, and it was because like of me sitting at home just being like not happy all the time. You can't see your friends, you're not doing anything, and I was like watching people break online and meeting people through that. So that's how I kind of got back into it. But yeah, I mean, I've been collecting since I don't know if you guys ever went to the card shows in New York, but like there was the one in Westchester, like the JP Sports Card one. Yep. I remember I like Fridays would once a month or whatever, my dad would come pick me up from school, and we just head right to Westchester when I was done in elementary school and stuff like that. And then there was the one on 42nd and between like 8th and 9th. I don't know if you ever went to that one, but
can you imagine that a card show on 42nd and 8th? Can you imagine what that would be like now? It'd be
like Times Square, right?
yeah.
Times Square, Penn Station area.
Yeah, exactly.
Penn's like 34th, but 42nd Times Square. It's crazy.
Oh, it would be a madhouse. Yeah.
I mean,
so yeah, that's kind of how I got back into it. But I have a question for you guys though. Like, what spurred you to like? I mean, starting a podcast is not like an easy thing. It's an easy thing to do. Like you got to prepare everything and like do all the marketing for it. Like I see you built up the Instagram page. Like what spurred you guys to just like start this podcast?
I'll give the easy answer, and then I'll let Handsome fill in the gaps. So you say it's not an easy thing to do. For me, it was the easiest thing in the world.
Really?
Because of this guy. Literally, like so backdrop. Andrew and I have never physically been in the same room together. Can you believe that? So this will be
I can't believe that.
If you count our pilot, you will be our 367th episode in less than a year. So we put out a year. A year will be our first episode came out on July 17th. So in about a week, we can change. We will hit a year of doing podcasts, and we've done more than one a day. Several times in the beginning, we did multiple episodes in a day because there was just so much going on in the hobby that we're like, you know what, let's go. I know we did an episode today, but let's get a double. Let's play two, as Ernie Banks would say. Your dad's a vintage collector. You probably have
I know. Come on, I know. Ernie.
So of course, so let's play two, right? So why was it easy? He and I met in an IG group. We had a whole bunch of people in there. Some names in the hobby. I was asked to join that group by Gary V. Andrew used to work for Gary V, the car talk there and that kind of stuff. And we met in there. We talked, showed collections, sold cards, you name it, just cut it up in there. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what was in the water. I don't know what you guys put in the water here, but it makes me want to come back every time, right?
Shooter.
Yeah, shooter. But whatever happened one week, people just started talking about podcasts. Oh, there should be a podcast about this. And then it's like, Cage, you should get on a podcast. And like 3 people were like, yeah, Cage, you'd be great on a podcast. And Andrew was like, he didn't just say, yeah, you'd be great on a podcast. He's like, here's a link. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., we're talking. And he sent me a link, and it was Zoom, and we got on, we started talking, and that conversation was our pilot.
Yeah.
And then we talked 3 more times in the next 2 days. And it was the easiest thing in the world because he made it very easy. He's like, look, the best time to start something is today. Yeah. And that will stick with me forever. It's amazing how much I learned from, he's a kid to me, but it's amazing. It's just a different way of doing stuff. So to me, it's been easy. And it's been part of an awesome routine, an everyday thing. You know what I mean? So yeah. I love it. And the hobby is an easy thing to do that with because there's so much going on. But go ahead, Andrew.
Sam, for me, it was in my early 20s, I made so many mistakes with money. I'm a gambler by nature, so I lost money gambling. When I invested in stocks, I would let them run and think that they're going to go to infinity. I overspent. At the same time, I've always had like a knack for buying and selling things, like flipping. I'm an immigrant. My dad came here. He bought a cafe, and he was just like good at flipping shit. So I was like, so I wanted to start a podcast to help people learn from my mistakes. But also, as I grow and become a better human, a better man, a better investor, I wanted them to see my progress. So that was my inspiration to start it. And what's cool, they say styles make fights. Cage is an encyclopedia of knowledge. He's been in the hobby for decades. He knows the game. He knows the releases. He knows the race. He has all the information. So he's quickly become the authority figure in the hobby. Like he says something, card porn takes it, clips it, and posts it.
I know. I see.
For me, I think I'm one of the audience members. I'm still learning. I'm still figuring it out. I'm trying to save money. I want to take, the 20, 50,000 I made last year and turn it into a few 100,000 doing things the right way. And I want to do that in front of people and help others do that too. Because we live in a society where either people love money or they shun it, but there's no real dialogue about how money creates freedom, right? And we're all looking for freedom. And that's why we do this. We're a daily show. So it's kind of cool. Our audience is, they know every day they can rely on us to put out a new episode.
Yeah.
And now we can't slip. We got to keep going.
I wanted to tell you guys, I thought when you brought on, you guys brought on the collectible guy, right?
Ezra. Yep.
That was like, when all that stuff was breaking and then you guys brought him on, I was like, that was the smartest thing that anyone did, was like get that guy on the podcast ASAP. And then everyone was sharing the video like as soon as you dropped. Like I just thought that was so smart, and it reminded me of like what we do here. Like we're all about speed. Like how do you be the first one to get it? And I remember when you guys brought him on, I was like, that was just like very smart. Like they think about it the right way. So I remember that was like kind of the I remember seeing you guys do that.
Well, we appreciate that, but I mean the thing is, what we're doing, we're not trying to be the police of the hobby. We're not trying to be gotcha to anybody. We've had Ezra on, and obviously when he had that big purchase, I questioned it, and that went for hobby. It went a little hobby viral, I guess, right? For, saying what was going on with it. So we reached out to him and said, hey, "Come on, like we're here. We'll give you the avenue to come on and give him credit." He's like, "Sure, let's do it. Let's go live." Like I'll go on and answer all your questions, and that's good, right? Because that kind of transparency and that immediate transparency, you're not going to get that everywhere. You know what I mean? And it allows us to do it because we're literally doing it every single day. Something happens yesterday, we talked about it. Like there's the record-breaking purchase, we talk about it. You know what I mean? Yesterday, Golden pulls a card from an auction. We're going to talk about it today. We'll talk about it. You know what I mean? So it's I love having the daily show for that reason, because literally something happens. Look what's going on just this week, right? If you have a weekly podcast, how are you fitting in a $5.9 million purchase with quotes? How are you fitting that in? How are you fitting in a Michael Jordan coming down on the Golden auctions? How are you fitting in all the prep for the National, the shows it is? So doing it daily, there's enough stuff. You try to do this weekly, forget about it. I would not let anyone get a word in edgewise.
Yeah.
Sam, are you going? Are you going to National?
I am. Yeah, I'm going. My dad and I are going. Looking I'm definitely looking for an E90-1 Joe Jackson card.
Ooh.
So I mean, well,
the boxer, right? The boxer.
No.
Shoeless
Joe,
the black,
man.
Shoeless
Joe. Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you?
I have no clue what card. I'm not a vintage guy.
Do you and Dad have a Cracker Jack? Do you guys have a?
We don't have a Cracker Jack.
So why the E90 one instead of the Cracker Jack one?
Well, the E90-1 is an earlier card.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like considered the rookie card, but like I don't know, we've always kind of been drawn to the caramel cards and things like that, and that one's one of the holy grails there. So I'm hoping to go and maybe trade for that one, because what do they always say about the National? If it's not there, then it probably doesn't exist.
Cards beauty.
That grade. Yeah, but that grade. Not gonna be able to get that grade though.
That's a bit
more like a 1. Yeah, I'm more. We're probably more in the 1.5 range, but that is the card that we're that's like our holy grail right now. So.
I owned a Joe Jackson, the Collins McCarthy, Joe Jackson.
Really?
In PSA 4.
Yeah. Oh.
And it was a really nice card. I bought it, and it's funny. After talking to Gary V, sold it. Yeah. Because he's like, it was a couple of years ago. And smart, I'll give the guy credit, right? Because, you know the trends. I was buying a lot of older baseball cards. I was buying, Yogi Berra because I'm a Yankee fan in high grade. I was buying, Hank Aaron. That has obviously gone up. I bought Hank Aaron, I bought Joe DiMaggio, and I bought Joe Jackson because that was, my guy. And he's like, listen, if I were you, I'd trade in the baseball stuff that very few people know and are looking for and start buying basketball. And I did. And I moved those things and bought like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar before that ran and, basketball guys, modern basketball and that kind of stuff. And it was definitely the right move. I could buy back in. But that Collins McCarthy, I mean, that was one of my most expensive purchases ever.
Yeah. I would say that is one of my, not like regrets, but like, as a person that play college basketball, like I play basketball 3 times a week. Like I sometimes think like, damn, if I had just been buying some LeBron Chrome rookie cards in 2006 when I was going to the Westchester Card Show, like as a basketball fan, that would have paid out well. But I do think like the vintage market, like first of all, way less volatile, right?
Yep.
And then and the second piece that I'm always like kind of marinating on is if we want to talk about pop reports, right? Like, look at how many 1951 Bowman Willie Mays cards are graded, right? Like, there's not that many, and he has 1 rookie card. Like, imagine if LeBron James had 1 rookie card, and there was only 1,000 of them out there. Like, what would that be worth? And meanwhile, you can get like a PSA 3 Willie Mays for like $8,000. Like, I don't know. I just think if you talk about pop reports and you look at like the caliber of the player. I still think there's a lot of like value in vintage cards. And look, I'm not like I don't have a Willie Mays card, so I'm not like pumping it. I'm just using that as an example because I saw it at Bleecker Trading.
Sam,
had one. Yeah.
Let me ask you real quick though, how much of it has to do with the fact that NBA has done an incredible job marketing their company and their business the last 15, 20 years, and MLB has struggled to market, and I think a lot of people under the age of, let's say 30 might not even know who Willie Mays is. And that's on MLB, doing all those, 75th anniversary, 5th. You're a media company, you understand marketing. So do you think that plays into it?
I mean, 100% plays into it. Like, I mean, we're looking at the prices of like Zion and John Morant. Like those guys are the most hyped. Those are the guys with the biggest followings on social media. Right. And like, and their cards were going for like crazy amounts. I mean, I think I understand like the cultural impact, but I try to look at things like, I mean, look, it's definitely true. Like baseball doesn't have that one guy right now, but I mean, there's a few coming up, right? Like, Shohei is obviously doing things that we've never seen before. Tatis, Vladdy Jr. So I do think kind of baseball is moving in the right direction because, Trout is not much of, he doesn't really do much media stuff. He's not much of a personality. But yeah, no, you're 100% right. Like the NBA has done the best job by far of marketing the players and getting them out there, and that like as reflected in the card prices. So yeah, I mean,
Cage, I'm curious.
Hard to argue with.
Cage, I'm curious your take, but I don't know if you know this. And Sam, correct me if I'm wrong. Overtime was actually one of the first media accounts to post about Zion in high school in 2017. Is that true? You guys kind of found Zion.
I'll tell you how we did this. So 2017, I think we had 100,000 followers on Instagram, 20,000 on YouTube, which is big, but like, I mean, not compared to where we are now. And every time that Zion would play, we would send people to the games with iPhones, and they would literally be like, every time Zion would have a crazy play, they would text me and our guy that runs our Instagram and TikTok, was like the best there is, Tom. They text us the play. In real time, we would put it into our editing software, and then the second the game was done, we'd export it to YouTube to make sure that we were the first one to have it on YouTube, because we were way smaller than all the other competing companies at the time. But we knew that if we were the fastest, that we could gain an edge. So we would literally be like filming these. We'd have people across the country filming, texting us the clips, and we'd be editing it in real time and putting it out. And then again, at the time we were small, and like SportsCenter would like repost our clip of Zion because we were the first one to post it, and we gained like 20,000 followers. But yeah, like I mean, we had some late nights in the office, like doing like Zion game recasts and things like that, and it's been fun to watch him just become a superstar.
We'll get back to Sam's collection, but I do want to talk about this because I think it'll help people. And Cage, I think you know where I'm going with this. There's so many new content creators in the hobby, a ton, and I think it's good for the hobby. I think the more media, the more attention, it's good because we're trying to bring people into the hobby. We're trying to grow the pie. You're running what was Overtime's top 5 media company in the U.S. What advice do you have for small content creators to help grow their brand?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is the thing that you guys mentioned, which is consistency. Like if you're not uploading consistency, you're just not gonna win. It's impossible because people, if they follow you, that's because they want to see you uploading stuff. So I think the first thing is consistency, and like going even a little bit deeper. One thing that we always try to do is like almost act like a TV network, right? Like everyone knew Game of Thrones was coming out at 9 p.m. every Sunday, and they tune in. Like, how do you instill that in your own audience? So like for our big shows that we drop on the weekends, we make sure everyone knows that like Fear Nothing with Mickey Williams is dropping at noon on Saturday, and then this show is dropping at noon on Sunday, and then on our football channel, this is dropping at noon on Saturday, this is dropping at noon on Sunday, right? Because like that's how you create like habit in your audience and create that community of people waiting for the video to drop. So I think like that's the first thing. And the second thing is, you know, it's easier said than done, but like you have to find your angle. Like Goldberg, like you mentioned, like there's so many people popping up now and doing their own content. So like, what's going to separate you from everyone else? For us, it's our voice. Because you know, back 4 years ago, we saw that media consumption habits were changing, and you know, the big companies might not have been creating the type of content that Gen Z millennial audience wanted to see. So we're like, oh wait, we can do this. Like we can write captions in the voice and let the athletes tell their stories, right? So like that was our angle, and that's what we've like pushed for the last 4 years. So I think it's really that consistency, finding your angle, and actually, sorry, one more thing, and this might also be the important thing. Like test a million things and fail a million times. And like I know people say it, but like we've tried so many videos that have gotten like no views, and then once every 20 times something will pop, and we're like, okay, that's it. Let's like keep pushing that button, right? Like our YouTube page with 2 million subscribers, you'll see videos on there with 5,000 views because we're like, screw it, like let's do this test and see what happens. And like you have to think like that. You can't be, you have to be precious with your like media space, but like if you don't take risks, you're never going to find out what's like the next thing that's going to work for you.
So, I mean, obviously, guys, you guys are listening. If you maybe pause, go back and listen to some of this stuff again, because I mean, you're obviously a wealth of knowledge when it comes to vintage. You're a smart kid, John Hopkins, 5 years graduate with a master's program, played ball there. But guys, it hasn't all been perfect for my man Sam. So let's get into it. Talk to us. I have 2 questions. Can you tell us the story about how you dunked on your own hoop in college? And 2, talking about testing, have you considered posting that on the video of that on the Overtime page?
Okay, here's the story. So I'll start with the story. So it actually happened in high school. It was at Julia Richmond High School on 67th and like 3rd maybe. I don't know. I'm probably not familiar with it. But anyways, so the story is that the ball was going. It was the other team's possession, and then the refs changed the call, and everyone was on one side of the court. So I ran to the other side of the court, and I looked, and I just saw a wide open half court. I was like, oh, the other team didn't realize that that like the ball switched possession. I have a wide open dunk. So I was past the ball. I went up and dunked it. And I'll be honest with you guys, there is a video of it. And you could hear people in the background screaming, no, 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 no. And then I dunk it. And then I guess the icing on the cake was that players from the other team came up to me and started giving me high fives since I just scored for them. And yeah, it gets posted on Overtime like once a year as a joke. So, they'll never let it die.
So here's a couple questions, right? And then some statements. Number 1, I like this. It's okay because if you've been watching soccer, football, the beautiful game recently, the most recent Euro tournament that's out there right now has basically been an own goal tournament. So,
there was another one yesterday, Cage. There was another one yesterday.
Yeah, well, that was also the worst penalty in the history of soccer called yesterday to decide who's going to get into the finals. But it is what it is. Yeah. But so, we're on brand with an own goal here. Here's a couple things. 1, I'm going to give you credit, right? Because, even though you had your job and, you came out, you have not faced the gauntlet of corporate interviewing. And one of the things they do in the gauntlet of corporate interviews is tell us about one of your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And your job as an interviewee is to somehow weave a strength into your weakness. It's like, well, sometimes I take on too much. I never want to turn down work. Like I'm such a hard worker that I sometimes take on too much. So you have managed to make the most embarrassing moment of your life still a dunk.
Yeah,
Which
I
99
never thought of it like that.
99, I mean, to have that embarrassment, you still have to be able to dunk, which
Yeah.
most of us will never get a chance to do. So that's 1, 2.
Cage, you told me when you lost some weight in college.
I done one
You
time.
dunked.
I
Yeah,
done
one
I
time.
was
So
19 years
Cage,
old.
you have some height, right?
Yeah, I'm tall. I'm almost 6'1".
Sam,
Yeah.
he did tell
yeah.
you his family is really similar to yours. We talk offline. I don't know how I know this, but they're late bloomers. Apparently, his brother grew like, what was it, 8 inches?
Your story. I was
after-
thinking of my brother because I remember
8 inches.
My brother graduated high school. He was like 5'9", and by sophomore year of college, he was 6'7". And I remember he came back to a homecoming game in high school, and his coach was like, because he played all 4 years of high school football as a smaller kid, as a backup guard, and played against like pros, like played against this should age us. He's my little brother. My little brother, 6'7". He was an offensive lineman, and Adewale Ogunleye, who people who listen to this won't know, but you can look him up. He played on Miami. He was a defensive end opposite of Jason Taylor, and then he played for the Bears. And he was a Pro Bowler. I mean, he was at my high school. He was a defensive end. And I mean, he would line up against my brother. And at one point, he rushed in so hard to get in practice that he actually bent my brother's hand back and broke his hand.
Man.
So I mean, but yeah, he got so tall afterwards. He came back and the coach was like, "Where was this for 4 years? I could have used this." Staten Island coach. Like, I could have used that. Could have used some of his size.
Are you from Staten Island?
Yeah, I grew up in Staten Island. Born in Brooklyn, grew up in Staten Island. And,
okay.
Yeah,
He's a New Yorker.
New Yorker. You can't tell. Now I live in Long Island. So, yes, I mean, easy stuff. Yes, comparison of the family is 100%. I thought of that. I thought of my brother when you were talking about your age growing up there, your late growth spurt. But yeah, the dunking, that's cool. But here's the deal. I want to know what the score was, because if your team was up at like 30. Then it's all right. You were just, as long as the other team didn't view it like, hey, you guys suck so much that I'm going to dunk for you. I'm going to score some points for you.
Yeah.
Right?
So
it was actually a game winner for the other team.
That's what I want to hear.
I mean, okay, we were up 20 at the time.
Right,
so I got, now I'll be honest, like in retrospect, I'm kind of happy it happened because it's a funny story. If it had been a game winner, I don't know. That would be pretty rough. But yeah, we were like up 20 at the time, and everyone was pretty shocked.
Yeah, and you got to be that guy. You're that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's my claim to fame.
Are you a Knicks fan?
Oh man, so my dad grew up in Boston, so I grew up a Celtics fan. But like honestly, from working in sports and writing about sports for the last like 10 years, I hate it, but I've lost like. I go to tons of games, but I've like lost my like fandom, and I hate it. So I'm kind of like a free
living in New York.
Like,
living in New York, it's been easy to stop being a fan over the last.
Well,
10
exactly.
years.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
That's true. That's true. Although 2013, good. What was it? 2013 or 14? With the Knicks. That was 1 year when we Carmelo and Felton and all them. But yeah, but besides that, it's been very rough.
Do you collect any modern cards? Do you collect any modern NBA?
Yeah, so I mean, like I've been getting into it a little bit because like I'm NBA is my real passion, basketball. So like I've been getting into it, but what I got? I got like one of my favorite cards I got recently was like a 2012 Durant Prism auto, which I just thought was cool because it's like the first year of Prism on card autograph. I definitely want to get more Durant stuff. But I'm definitely like easing my way in there, and I'm trying to pick, pinpoint what type of stuff I really want to get. But like obviously, I'd love to get like a Jordan autograph, LeBron autograph, something in that space. I'm just trying to find the right time to get in.
Talk to us about Overtime polls. So if you guys are listening, it's just Overtime PULLS. Just go follow them. It's their new sports card account. Talk to us about that and how some people can support or contribute content or anything like that.
Yeah, sure. So basically, like I literally got a text from our founder one day, and our chief content officer, and they were like, "Sam, we need sports cards. Like it. Like just get something going." So like the next day, I started a TikTok page. It's like Cage, like you mentioned with the podcast, where like we just like kind of where you just like got up and did it. Like that's what happened with our. It started on TikTok, and the angle I took with it was like, I watched a lot of content beforehand to see what was out there, and I thought a lot of it was maybe like a little bit niche to people that understood sports cards at a high level. So what I tried to do was widen the funnel at the top, and to bring in people that maybe don't know as much about sports cards, and the way that I tried to do that was like with a narrative, like even like you could just post a video of a poll, but you can also like tell a story around it, right? Like you can put text on it saying this pack, this just happened today, the pack costs this much and people are looking for XYZ, right? Like you can build a narrative about something that anyone can understand, and then it just applies to 5x as many people, and then you could do the same thing in the caption where it's like, you might not talk about all the year and the specific branding, right? But like just say something generally about the card that anyone can relate to. And that was kind of the strategy going in. And then suddenly, like, the stuff on TikTok started. I spent a few minutes on it every week, and like the stuff on TikTok started getting a lot of views. So I was like, okay, I'll put some more time in, and then it grew. Now it's at like the TikTok's at like 39,000 followers, and then we started an Instagram page. And that's been getting some traction too. And like I think we have a lot of work to do, honestly, on the content side, because I'm trying to like push the boundaries there a little bit. But generally, it's just like, how do we widen that funnel and bring as many people into the sports collectibles universe as possible?
Can I say something, Cage?
No.
All of you guys for the last 3 months that have been whining, complaining in our DMs, is the hobby crashing, all of that stuff. Let me just paint you guys a little picture. These are 2 million follower accounts, probably in the tens and 20s of millions, Overtime and Barstool, who've recently got into the sports card hobby. Think about all the media attention that's coming. How many new people are going to come? I just think sometimes we look at the prices of cards too much, and we don't look at business activity and what's really happening. Mm-hmm. And Cage, you don't follow either of those accounts, so I don't know if you agree with me, but I think it's such an indicator when there's accounts like Barstool, Overtime, and others coming into the hobby to start talking about it. It's a really healthy indicator for where the direction of the hobby's going.
Yes, and it depends where you sit in the hobby, right? So I'll tell you, top line news stories, mergers, and you name it. They're usually good for the overall, but there's always a segment of the worker ants that it's not going to matter to. And really, let me explain, right? So there's a segment of people who have come into this hobby in the last year, right? They don't care right now that Barstool or anyone else is doing a break with Ken Golden or that Overtime is there, because their role in the hobby was where they were seeking alpha. It was where they were going to find their money. It was where they were going to do their sneaker flipping is now going to be card flipping. It's going to be easy money, because it's easy to make money as something is going up like this, because as it's flat or it's going through normal market volatility, what has to happen? A little more work, a little more sweat equity has to be put into that. It's not easy money. It's not, let me go get something from Target for $10 and sell it for $50. And it's easy. So to that segment, and believe it or not, that was a huge part in steaming up the prices and running the market up the way that it has in the last 18 months or so. I think long term, and if you look at this macro wise, you look at it like with a real wide lens, it's a huge thing for these market participants to be coming in and bolstering this up for the long term. I think in the short term, a lot of that segment of the hobby that was just in it for easy money will leave. And then what you're gonna be left with is it's a healthier long-term thing. Does that make sense?
But Cage, they're flaky anyway. They're gonna come right back when there's the next alpha to chase.
Maybe, yeah. And the next time it's going up. We've seen.
I have a question. I have a question for you guys. I'm curious what you think, because I think one thing that people have called out a bit is like, you have all these people breaking on Instagram that their incentive is, they're trying to sell, and like a lot of times, everyone's posting their best polls, right? And like that's what we do too, is like we post the best polls, and like some fair feedback that I've heard is like, you're kind of showing a world where like you're spending all this money on packs and you're only getting like great cards. And like I understand that feedback, but at the same time, like what I think in my head is like, but the whole point is of sports card collecting, and the reason I like it is like the community and like seeing other people hit great cards, and like it's just fun to see people do well, right? Like, so like that's why I view like us posting. But I'm curious, like, what do you guys think about like kind of the I don't know what the right word is, like the fantasization of like pulling all these great cards, and how you go on, you see everyone ripping $1,000 cards, but in reality, like most people are losing money.
Am I allowed?
Oh my God, Cage is pushing his hair back.
Am I allowed? I love it. I love it because it's a rational conversation to have, right? And when you are as big as you are, right, or you have a following that's out there, a legitimate following, you want to show even, right? You want to show, look, this, you want to put a disclaimer. You're a finance guy. We'll put a disclaimer on, past results are not indicative of future, So yeah, just because this guy pulled $1 million Zion doesn't mean you're going to get it in every single pack you do.
Exactly.
But let's be fair, right? Especially these breakers, these companies, are businesses, right? These are businesses, right? So if you own a hotel in the Bahamas, all right, when you want to advertise that hotel, you're going out there at 6 a.m. before anybody's putting their towels on and reserving their seats, and you're going to have the nice crystal water with an empty beach, and you're going to show the most beautiful. You're not showing a picture of Hurricane Elsa or whatever this most recent, let it go storm was. You're not going to show it in shambles, right? If you are a restaurant, you will display the best meal you have, the best, the best area you have. If you are a business, you're always going to advertise with the best stuff, right? You're going to have the best looking people. You're going to have so. These are businesses, they're breaking businesses, and their best advertisement is going to be their best pulls. And people have to realize that that's what's being shown, right? This is the best version of this company, the best version of what you could get out of this. So while I get it, you also have to remember, have some common sense when you go into this, right? Just because that's the break you see, you have to realize that's posted and being watched a couple thousand times because it has the huge hit.
Right.
If you look enough, you'll find a video with 8 views that somebody did trash with. Somebody will open a prison box and be like, "Wow, the best I got in this was Mikal Bridges rookie." Okay, but no one's gonna be watching that, so it won't be in front of your eyes. So exactly. I get where you're coming from, but as a business, your job is to advertise your best stuff. So, our page, we post all the big polls. So like that's why I was curious what you guys thought, because for us, we need to post the best stuff, because Cage, like you said, like that's how you get eyeballs on it. You have to post the interesting things. So I was definitely like curious where you guys stood on that.
So guys, we're a little limited on time, so we got to let Sam go. But I really hope that we reconnect. I hope we have you back on. Please give Sam a follow. It's OvertimeSam on Instagram. If you guys don't know about Overtime, I would recommend spending 30 minutes reading up about them, because they're going to take over. I think they're going to do damage with this NIL. I think they're going to be really, really successful at the high school basketball league. I'll give you my take on his question, and it's a quote from Socrates. It's to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. It's to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. So to me, when it comes to breaking, it's to know yourself. If you are in it to have fun with your friends and just to shoot the shit on a Friday, Saturday night, cool. If you're a gambler like me, I stay far away from breaks, because I know I'm gonna be chasing. So to me,
your EV is low. Your EV is low on pack ripping.
So for me, I don't want that. I don't want to get worked up. I don't want to have that stress. So I'm like, that's not my game. But it took me 11 years, 14 years, who knows, to get to this place. It's to know yourself, know your characteristics, know your qualities, so you set yourself up for success.
Socrates, I love it, man. Socrates loves San Dimas. He'd love Socrates loves San Dimas. Did you know that? You know what that's from, Andrew?
No, I want to ask him Bucks or Suns to win the finals.
I'm gonna go Bucks. I think Giannis is gonna come back, and I think they're gonna win.
Whoa!
I've said Bucks, even though I wavered when the Nets demolished them by 50 and went up 2-0. I wavered. I did.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with the Bucks.
I'm now gonna do my new favorite thing. I'm gonna say Suns in 4, and then I'm gonna punch somebody.
Dude, I want to talk about that guy for a second, because maybe we'll save that for a daily episode. Because now he's like an internet celebrity, and he became an internet celebrity from fighting someone.
Not just other guys. Did you see a picture he took yesterday? It was with Jamal Murray.
Yeah, but then you go to like Utah, and some fan says something racist to a player, and we're like, ban him for life. And it's like the hypocrisy is insane. This one guy just beat the crap out of someone. He was
defending himself. He was kind of defending himself because the other guy threw the first punch.
Andrew, you can look for a decade, and it's going to be hard for you to find another guy who had the lower ground in a stadium fight and got the upper hand. It's very difficult when you have the upper ground in those fights. Usually, the upper ground is where you want to be, all right? Because you're punching down on some. I'm not that I get drunk at sporting events and know about I'm not. I swear. So, but the lower ground usually does not fare that well in a stadium surroundings. So
he's really Rocky. The Suns in 4 is Rocky 6 is what we're saying. He's the new Rocky. He stood on lower ground and he. No, Sam, this was a blast. Thank you so much for coming on. Cage, close us out. You had something to say.
No, Sam, no. Listen, all I really want from Sam is if you can, tell us where to follow you. Tell us where to follow the breaks. Just drop this, just because people are going to be with us till the end. Just what's your account? What's the breaks account? Where they should look for you on Overtime and where they see the content you're putting out.
For sure, yeah. So, I mean, my personal account is OvertimeSam. There's not much cards stuff there. It's mostly basketball. It's mostly me playing basketball, so you can do that. But like our polls account, our main account is at Overtime. Our polls account is at Overtime Polls. I also want to just thank I had someone working with me this summer, Sarah, who's in college, but she's been helping me a lot with the polls page. So it's not just me. I do have some help there now. So shout out to Sarah. But yeah, Overtime Polls. If you're interested in polls content, and like DM us anything, like. We talk about testing. Like we'll post anything on the page if it's related to sports card collectibles. Like it doesn't need to be a poll; it could be anything interesting. Like we're down to post it and tag, and crediting is super important to us. So we do that. So yeah, like DM us if you have something good, and definitely check us out. And guys, like seriously, I actually had a great time. Like this was so fun to just talk about the hobby and sports and stuff like that. Like I really had a great time.
Thanks, Sam.